Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to MSP Community Live. I'm Matt, means Ray's not here. Josh, how's it going today? How's your Friday?
Hey, it's going pretty good. We survived trick-or-treating last night. Went out for about an hour and a half. Kids got more candy than they need, so now we're trying to convince them to swap their candy for better alternatives, like some chore store money or a toy or something. But it was fun.
Good for you.
Yeah. Because the problem though is if it's in the house, I'm also going to eat it. So we just need to get rid of it.
So that's the risk. I don't really get too many where I live, but so maybe this makes me like Scrooge or something. But I don't hand out candy because we get maybe 2 or 3 trick-or-treaters if I did, and all that would happen is I would have bags of candy here that I end up eating. I just don't need that.
Exactly.
I didn't have junk food anyway. So yes, I was the grump, had the porch light out, and just kind of pretended I wasn't home. So be it.
We did reverse trick-or-treating, so we made little trick bags, and luckily our neighborhood is fantastic, and we know a lot of, most of the people there, so pretty tight knit community. So when we saw a kid that we knew or they go to school with, and we handed them a little treat bag versus having them, because last year we did the whole bowl of candy, take one piece, and it worked really well until the end, where we came home and it was still like mostly full, and then we got the costumes off, went to go get it, and then it was empty. It's like, come on, man. We need to like dump it all. But so we had little gift bags, which was way more fun. Kids got excited with that.
So I feel like I need to mention one thing. I know it's not the sports show, but there's been a lot going on in the world of sports. One is the Yankees, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your fandom, had a pretty serious meltdown in the 5th inning the other day. It was rough for my Yankee fan friends, and me as a Mets fan, kind of indifferent, entertaining to watch. And yesterday, right after I went to bed, of course, I decided to go to sleep in the 3rd quarter because that game was looking putrid. And all of a sudden, I missed what may be the catch of the year so far. So if you're...
He's on Garrett Wilson's on my fantasy team, so he needs to be thrown to more.
Nice.
That was an insane catch. I was recording my music podcast the night of Game 5, and we're sitting there like talking about music. I'm like, hold on, like, because I looked at the score beginning. I'm like, oh man, the Yankees are up like 5-0 or something like that. And we went in, and then I was like, I wonder what this is at. It's like the 8th inning or whatever. And I look, I'm like, all right, hold on. Like, I'm gonna give live updates here because this is insane. I was like watching the play-by-play, and it's like, oh man, Dodgers are up 1. So I was entertaining as well. I'm not a fan of either team, but I've disliked the Yankees more than I've disliked the Dodgers. So they won all in. They got O'Hanty, and then now he's got is it a ring? What do they get? Because in football they get a Super Bowl ring. What do they get when they win a World Series in baseball?
So yes, you do get rings in baseball. The trophy is called the Commissioner's Trophy as opposed to the Lombardi Trophy. And for the Dodgers, the biggest thing is now they erased the issue of their 2020 championship being called into question because it was the COVID season. So now they feel like they won a real one.
They wrote some checks that they cashed, and it all worked out. So
or cash later in Ohtani's case. Anyway, okay, I will stay away from the sports, but it was just such an interesting and exciting week in the world of sports. And thankfully tonight there are no late night sporting events on, so I can finally get some sleep.
Go. Well, speaking about all this money that we're throwing around, let's get into our first story here, which does involve money, but doesn't involve sports.
I was busy, so I have not seen any of these stories beforehand. So these are total surprises to me. So that will be even more interesting than usual.
Perfect. So that means he hasn't vetted any of these stories. So hopefully the ones I threw in at the end. All right.
I'm sure they're fantastic.
In this first one here, this person asks, how are you balancing cybersecurity offerings with affordability, especially for SMB clients? So our SMB clients, they don't have the payroll that the Dodgers or the Yankees have. So they clearly can't afford high-level prospects of this. So he's basically wondering, how are you able to keep them secure when affordability is such and budgeting is such a big thing when it comes to SMBs? So what are the most needed products? Is it identities? Is it EDRs, email protection? Thanks. So what do you think here?
Okay, so the way that I would swing at this is that the question almost talks about the thing that I'm preaching frequently, and that is that it's not really about the tools and products anyway. And the way that I approach this is trying to get the best bang for buck products and focusing on configuration and program management. So perfect example, M365 Business Premium, right? You get so many things that you can do security-wise without even having to buy anything else from that point, right? You get conditional access, you get MFA, you get upgraded Business Defender. So before you even get into what other tools do I need, maximize the absolute most out of the stuff you already have. And I would be willing to bet big bucks that most organizations don't have that fully configured and fully worked out. So for the SMB market, start with that and then add tools as necessary. Now we've talked previously about there are some tools you're going to force all your clients to buy and things like that. But start with Business Premium, get that completely configured and ready to go, and then see what you're still missing based on what risks you still feel like you have.
Yeah, absolutely. There was an article that was actually released last week from Dark Reading, and so the global information security spend is projected to reach 215 billion by the end of 2024. But they surveyed some CISOs, and they show that the cash may not have been the peace of mind they hoped for. 44% of them report that they missed a data breach or a security event in the last 12 months with their existing tools. And that goes to show, like, you can't just throw money at the problem and hey, I'm going to buy the new fancy tool, I'm going to do all this, and I'm buying security in hopes it goes away. It is not that's one small part of it. Like, cool. In your case, you know what? Business Premium is not good enough. I got money. I got Dodger money, and I'm gonna get E5 licenses. Well,
Hey, I mean, great. There's more stuff in it, but okay.
but if I don't configure it, then
Exactly.
then I might as well just have Business Basic, because
Yeah.
you're just throwing money at a tool or a license, and then if you're not utilizing it to its capability, if you don't understand the tool, know the ins and outs, or have somebody who is a professional with this and configures them, then you're not doing anything really.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
there's so many new tools. There's a SaaS product for everything, there's an app for everything, but again, what can your existing tools do? I mean, is this something that it's already covered? Having some sort of, hey, this is what this tool does, this is what it covers, having that vendor service provider matrix can help you identify where your gaps are, and having a gap assessment. Hey, how you can do that is if you align to a framework, you do a gap assessment and say, yes, I'm doing this. Yes, I'm doing this. No, I'm not doing this. And then figure out, what do you need? Is it a process? Is it something you can do with existing tools? And if you've answered no all the way to this point, then maybe you do need a tool to spend money on. But you can do a lot with Business Premium. And then also, things that you can do to keep them secure. I mean, obviously you have your MFA, your EDRs, things that you need. But I know I've preached it plenty of times on here, but going through and like having documented procedures, processes, a DRP, incident response plan, that's not a tool. It just takes time to do. And yes, there's a cost to labor, but at the same time, and it's not a tool. I mean, there really isn't a cost outside of the labor for making these documents. And then when an incident happens, you know exactly what you're doing and you can recover quickly, which does save money with it. So there are plenty of ways to increase security for any client, regardless of their size, that doesn't involve buying expensive tools.
I'm going to sum up our answers in one sentence. Tools are there to serve some specific purpose, and don't buy them unless you have a real problem that you need to solve with one. Otherwise, you can get really far without buying anything.
Yeah, I mean, you can download the CIS 18 controls right there and basically go through and check, yes, like there's so much you can do for free, if that's where you want to go to it. So, all right, well, we've solved that one then. So we've made all the small to medium business clients secure. So now let's look internally here. And
Blue's provided a path to security. I don't know about making them secure yet. Just unplug the network cable.
That's true. Yeah, you don't have internet, you'll be secure. So let's look internally here at the MSP. This person is a pretty straightforward topic. How do you level up your techs? Wondering if anyone there has a way where they educate their text, or is it mostly on the job training and study on your own?
So we've talked about this, I think, a couple of times before in different ways, and you and Ray actually had slightly different answers and slightly different approaches to this than me. I think it's just a consequence of the team I worked in that I had a lot of higher level techs working in my department, and it was really about providing them time and sometimes resources to study on their own. Like during the work day, you could take some time and put it into ConnectWise under like training time or study time or something like that. And then just giving them access to, whatever video platform or training platform we used at the time, or paying for, the study materials, or things like if they took the exam and passed, we would reimburse them for it. Maybe if they failed to, I don't really remember anymore. Anyway, I liked to just give more seasoned techs resources to study on their own and learn things. Now, more junior techs, for me, the most effective thing that I found was having them work with me on something, right? If we were doing a server install, if we were doing a cloud migration, if we were doing whatever, have them do part of it. Give them some rope to fail, right? Let them, do the pre-config on the server, and maybe they have to redo it if they didn't do it right. But that learn by doing approach is what just happened to work with the team of people I worked with. Curious to hear your answer, because if I remember, it's a little bit different than what I did.
Yeah. What you do is you force them to take self-paced Microsoft Learn exercises, and then you tell them at every hands-on meeting that you need to do this, but then you don't give them any time to do it, and then they're forced to do it off the clock and spend all of their waking hours learning, and trial by fire, right? That's not what to do, and unfortunately, it's that's a pretty common thing you'd see. Yeah, I think to your point, the two approaches, the just having like a subscription to like a Udemy or an IT Pro TV or something like that. I've seen both pros and cons, because you're going to have techs that are going to be different levels of motivation, and you'll find, I think, an experience like if you just have a company-wide subscription to one of those, that maybe a handful of people are utilizing it, but the vast majority aren't. Having the time that you can spend, we have 2 hours a week that you can spend towards training, and you block it off on your calendar, and it's just used for professional growth or whatever you want to learn, is a great thing, because I've done the learning after hours, and I know when I was trying to pick up something, that's literally all I did was like ate, slept, and then studied on this particular thing for like a month and a half.
Been there.
And it sucked, but I got it done for better, and I don't want to do that again. So having giving the resources, but then it's not just, hey, here's a video, because again, everyone learns a little bit differently. I know what I've done is I prefer, working with the techs, or if you're not sure what to do or how to do something, ask to shadow, hey, what are you doing today? Or can I watch what you're doing? Or can you teach me what you're doing? You don't have to take that sort of ambition and just ask and tag along. And hey, if you're installing a server, well, you might not know how to do the software part of it, but you know how to do hardware part of it. Like, put it together, boot it on, install Windows, and get it to where you don't know the next step, and then learn the next steps. So doing that shadowing, or providing sandboxes. I don't know if they still do. It's been a bit, but Microsoft at some point had dev environments where you could get an E5 demo environment to you could break it. I mean, you could do whatever you want. It's
if you're a partner, you can still get those.
Is it still those? Okay. So just having that sandbox, I know that's one thing I've done for techs before, is I've spun one of those up and I said, hey, this is your tenant. You have an E5 license. You can literally do anything you want in it. Here's a Microsoft certification test that I took, and these are some of the things that I had to do. And then these are things that I've done in a Microsoft tenant before. So I gave them a list of 20 things, and I said, figure this out, do this, send me screenshots, and kind of get that hands-on learning plus whatever. So I think there's two approaches to it. You can just say, hey, watch this videos, do it on your own, or you can just take the more proactive approach, which I think works a little bit better if you have that kind of mentorship to lead and to really level up the techs and build that relationship with them.
Yeah, I have one comment and one follow-up question. The comment, you mentioned giving study time during the day, and my comment is, if you're in a managerial position or if you're in dispatch, you've got to respect that's happening, right? It's so tempting to pull somebody off to deal with a client that's calling with emergency or crisis or something. That has to be treated like anything else, right? They're not available to take phone calls when they're studying. Otherwise, there's no point in doing it. My follow-up question is, do you or should you require your team to get and maintain certs. And I think there may be different answers for ones that you need for vendor partnership levels versus ones you just want to have for education purposes. So curious to hear your thoughts on that.
I mean, especially for an MSP side of things, because you do get the partnership benefits and things like that. The other side with them too is, I mean, looking at, well, I'm biased because I literally have a wall of certs above me behind the camera that you can't see. I have a lot. And at some point, what you do day to day isn't the same as what you're doing with the cert. Like I have a certified wireless network admin. That was one of the harder certs that I've taken. I did a lot of things with wireless. I didn't do half of the things that cert, they taught me to do. So it's good to have kind of that deep knowledge with it, but it's the practical versus the book knowledge. So there is also a benefit to having industry recognized certs such as like like Security Plus, Net Plus, CCNA, SIS, whatever. So I think it's something that you can kind of help the text with, and it feels good getting those and having those and kind of demonstrate the knowledge. I mean, it's the same thing of having a college degree. It shows that you're able to learn information, retain information, and then take a test. Which I have friends that are absolutely like they're smarter than me, and when it comes to tech stuff, they know a lot, but they aren't good test takers, and they can't pass a cert test, and it's I mean, I would say it's a little unfair, but it's I don't know if that's the right word, but I have empathy for them because they clearly know the material. They've been doing this. They have the experience, and just because they lack the skill to take a test, which is a skill in itself, they don't have those. So I don't think I would, in that particular case, like, hey, we require you to have this cert, but if they can't pass it, but they can do the job, like why should they be punished for that?
I think my position on it is there are some certs you need to maintain partner status, and those I don't think it's a problem to require that as long as it's upfront in the job description that that's part of the responsibilities of the position. But the corresponding part of that is if you require your employees to maintain certs, you have to give them the resources and time to study during the day. I think that's the fair trade-off. Levels like what cert you're getting, all that really just depends. But I do see cases where it makes sense to require employees to hold certifications.
Yeah. Well, if you're a Microsoft Silver or Gold partner or whatever it is now, I think they went away with those, but it's a CSP program, but they do require certain certifications held by staffs on those, so you can't have that, or in order to resell. I know there's another thing too, and this is going off on a tangent, not that we ever do that, but there was a post, I don't know if it was on last week's or this week's, but we didn't cover it, but it was something our friend Dean covered where somebody posted, is the vendor space in the MSP world getting worse? And then, of course, somebody put the other things are, on the other side of it, if you're a vendor, are you seeing our MSPs getting worse? And Dean made a really good point on that, is these vendor provided certifications now are much easier to get because the market is so much more saturated. Before, it was just a handful of players, and you had to be, in order to be top of the top, you had to have the certs and make them a certain amount of sales. But now, because there's so many more MSPs, there's so many more vendors, that they've really lowered the bar on how to get the certifications and achieve status and things like that. So we're making it easier, and it's leading to kind of a polluted market, if you will. So I know Dean has a video on it. If I can find it, we'll put it in the show notes. But I thought it was an interesting take on that when we're talking about kind of vendor certs.
I mean, it's a good point. I won't name any vendor names on the show. Come see me at the bar at IT Nation Connect if you want to know how I feel about certain vendor certs. Some of them are valid, and the example is always CCNA is technically a vendor cert, right? Some of the ones that are pretty well respected as far as you have a good baseline knowledge are vendor certs. Now, things that might not be as respected, some generic firewall cert, but that could still be useful if you're a partner that sells lots and lots of firewalls from that brand, knowing how to use and support their stuff is valuable, even if it's not widely industry recognized. So there's some nuance to that as far as does it make sense and does it apply to the job you're doing? But I would agree that fewer and fewer of them are overall industry-wide recognized as providing general knowledge. But really, like the Cisco ones are some of the only ones that fall into that category at this point.
All right, I absolutely. So I did find the post, and I did find the video. So if you want to throw those in the show notes, highly recommend checking that out. It was a very interesting conversation to go over. So, but as far as our show here, let's go ahead and go to the next one here. So
It's the
kind of-
everything show: sports, LinkedIn posts.
a little bit of everything. So let's go back to our first story where we're asking, hey, what tools should I have? What should I be using? So let's say I have all these fancy tools. Each of these tools provides a report. What are you giving your clients? What reports do you give clients when you're doing your business review, or whether it's monthly, quarterly, weekly, whatever it is? What kind of reports are you providing to them?
Okay, so I think there's some nuance to this question that there's a question within a question. And what I mean by that is, what's your goal with these reports? There's a couple ways to look at this. One is this something that your client is actually going to use day to day? Like, do they care about how many patches got installed or how many made up minutes that you automated some process and decided arbitrarily that it cost half an hour every time this script runs, and now I'm going to say that I saved you $10 zillion every month, or is this just a way? And frankly, I don't think it's a good way. Is this just a way for me to say to my client, "Hey, I'm actually doing something, so stop questioning why my price is so high"? Because if that's the case, don't even bother sending it, right? Go fix the relationship and have more frequent meetings and understand, demonstrate the value through things that you do, and advice that you give and service that you provide, as opposed to just this, we installed a zillion patches. Things that might be a little more useful are things like, here's the patch percentage on each machine. You don't have to, you're not justifying work, you're giving status updates. Things like, here's how many open vulns exist in the environment based on whatever vulnerability scanning tool you're using. Here's the here's the employee who's consuming the most hours on service tickets, like things like that. But I'm very, very dead set against providing reports that exist solely to justify your own existence.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you'll find a lot of clients don't care about some of those reports. It's like, okay, cool. I don't know what this means. So give me the executive summary of it. Or on the other side of that, some of your clients they want those reports. So asking your client, like, hey, what information is important to you? What are some things that you're looking on, and we can utilize our tools to get those reports. We have a client who our point of contact are two ladies kind of on more of the accounting side. So they're very like numbers based, and they run through things with a fine tooth comb. So they appreciate the extremely detailed reports so they can go through and do all of this stuff. And it's not that they don't trust us or anything. It's just that's how they operate and that's what they want. And meanwhile, we have other clients who they don't care about the reports. They just want to make sure that things are working. So what we're providing them is like the service management report. So like you said, here's the tickets, the breakdown of the tickets that have been submitted and top submissions and things like that. And then, things like, obviously we have the life cycle reports on their hardware. So that way we're making sure that we're keeping on the replacement cycle. So you don't have things that are, out of warranty or end of life, and we can keep up on that and have that budget and things like that. So, I mean, having all the reports might be fine, but I think it really depends on your clients and part of your relationship to know what they value and what they don't really care about. It's like you said, hey, we installed 10,000 patches. Well, cool. Then you did your job. Like, what what does it have to do with keeping my business running?
Yeah, is it actionable? Right? Can they read this and make
Yep.
some decision or do something based on the contents? And if the answer is no, think twice about sending it.
Yep. Now, on the other hand, like if you're doing an assessment, that would be where you would kind of have some of those, hey, here's a report on these vulnerabilities, what you're missing. I think those are more report friendly meetings or kind of interactions. But, I know for us, like the security training, that's one that we kind of send weekly or, monthly and things like that. But yeah, just ask your client. It depends on the client and find out what's important for to them.
So I think this is I would almost describe this as a read the room scenario, in that I'm thinking of a client we used to have way back when, and you could almost envision when the report came in that they would take out the calculator or go out to the Excel spreadsheet, look at how many hours are spent at tickets, compare that against the price of their contract, and say, how many, what was my effective hourly rate this month? I mean, do I feel like I'm getting value for the price I'm paying? And if you have clients that start to go down that road, or you think that they're watching things that closely, the answer is not to give them detailed reports on this. I mean, yeah, maybe if they want it, but figure out what your relationship problem is with that client. And I think that's the trap or hole that many of us fall into, is that we're trying to convince our clients that they're getting something for their dollars with the report. And that's just not the purpose of reporting. Everything that goes into a report that the client receives, they should be able to do something with. They should be able to.
Yep.
I need this for my compliance audit. I can go talk to that user who's not doing the security awareness training. It should be things like that. It should not be, this is why you're paying me.
100%. I'm a big fan of just a nice, simple executive summary report. We don't name vendors on the show. Usually it's in a negative context, but this is a positive one. But still following, hey, don't name members. But there's a newer vendor that I have that provided an executive summary report of the tool, what they're doing, and I was so blown away from it because I was like, this is exactly what I need. It is a 1-page. This is what was solved this month. This is what's outstanding. This is the recommendations. Like, it's all I needed, right? I didn't need the 80 pages of the detail. And I was like, this is perfect. And this is what I want to see in a report. I click, okay, cool. It's doing its thing. Here's what's outstanding and here's what we need to do next. Like that's what I want in a report. And I feel the clients are probably about the same, hey, we know that you're doing stuff, or we assume if we have a trusted relationship, you're doing stuff. So just give me hey, what, an overview, what was done, what needs actions, what's next.
Agreed. Okay, so I think we have made our point on reports, and I think we gave a couple examples of the types of things to send to clients to to answer the original question in the thread. Things that are value, like not things that justify your existence, things that they can take action on.
Yeah, well, hold on. We're not done with reporting yet. So we went from external reports to internal reports. And
internal, okay.
What are your top 3 support KPIs? If you could only pick 3 performance KPIs to track the health of your help desk, what would they be? So kind of report related, but what are the key KPIs?
All right, I'll start with one. And just for reference, I was not the service desk manager, so I'm taking a somewhat wild swing at this. The thing that always was useful to me, and the thing that seemed to matter to clients more than anything else, was, man, it's still response time. Like it seems so basic, but that was the thing that mattered the absolute most. If I could only track one thing, how long are people waiting for? And by response time, I just want to be clear, I mean real first response, not like the automated email, we got your ticket, so technically we met an SLA. Like, when is somebody actually working on this thing? Things like resolution time kind of matter, and we don't want tickets that are sitting there for weeks or things like that going on. But if you told me one thing that will piss off clients, it is not getting to their stuff quickly enough. Many of the other things you can deal with.
Yeah.
That's my one. It's super basic, but that's what I'm going with.
So what's funny about that, and I grabbed it. So this is our little our internal coin, and you can't really see it, but we have a model here in my MSP, and we say do it with class, or CLASS, and it stands for something. So when they first originally made it, it was just one S, and it was care, leadership, accountability. And service. Those are the main pillars of the operation. I'm like, well, we need the other S to finish it. So we chose speed. And so speed is the last S on there. So when we provide focused recognition or focused feedback, we typically, these are the categories that we're looking for them under. So if a tech did a good job or they want to provide feedback, what area would you like to recognize them or what they did? And more often than not, speed is the one that gets picked, and the reason, like, hey, you guys are quick at resolving and getting us taken care of. So even though it was like the last one and it was an afterthought and it was literally just used so that way they could finish the mission statement and motto and have it be an actual word, it's the one that does get picked up most by the clients. So to your point, I mean, that's a prime example of that is one that does matter. And having, SLA is something a little different, or service level expectation, things like that. And when we focus on is obviously customer satisfaction. And if the ticket gets picked up in 35 seconds or 35 minutes, there's a small difference there, and obviously you want to be speed. But if the end result is the customer is happy and satisfied, I think that's kind of better. So having, tracking, I guess I think it's the CSAT percentage is another good KPI to have, and also an area where you can get both, positive feedback and things to improve on. I know in my call center days, that was one where we had, and call centers and MSPs are different beasts. Call centers are much more soulless and black and white and driven by the numbers. But we had average handle time, quality. So we had to record the calls and make sure that you were saying the opening statement, saying the ending statement, like saying specific phrases and doing all this stuff. So I had to judge on that. And then there was, adherence to your schedule, right? So there was a lady on my team, because I became a manager and I was a young manager, so they gave me the problem team because it's just like trial by fire. There was a lady on my team who didn't care about her metrics, and we got bonuses based on the metrics. But then obviously, bigger picture, the contract was, in order for the call center to retain the contract with the vendor, we had to align to these. Like, they weren't negotiable, like they weren't goals. It was contractual obligations. So trying to work with this lady on, like, because she didn't care about any of her goals. She cared about providing good service to the customer, making sure the customer's taken care of and satisfied. And she would sit on the phone for the phone call, I think, was supposed to be like 8 minutes or less, and she would sit on there for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And it's like, you're good at your job and I know what you're doing, but at the same time, we need to meet these. So I had to come up with different various ways to, make sure that she's meeting her SLAs while making the customer happy. So we got two. We got CSAT and we got speed. Anything else you would add? We need a third one.
Well, so the other things that I like to keep track of, and they're not necessarily purely so. Well, one is I like to know if there are any techs that are overloaded and that the load is distributed appropriately. Like if somebody queue is getting really backed up, that can be a sign. One, be careful about round robin dispatching, and two, see what's going on, that person is stuck. Is there a ticket they should be escalating and haven't, and now they're backlogged on it? Do you have an issue with dispatch where you're sending out things just kind of haphazardly without taking into account who's most overloaded? Does someone just get stuck with some really weird issues and need some help? Things like that. So I do like to be aware of the tech load. It's not necessarily a KPI exactly, but it's something we did look at frequently. And the other thing around support desk, and again, not necessarily related to individual techs, is we really wanted to track if there were any client environments that were using a disproportionate amount of service based on the number of endpoints they had, right? So if somebody has 10 endpoints, they should have whatever based on a formula, this amount of break fix hours per month. I think some organizations call that REM, reactive hours per endpoint managed. And that's a huge thing to take care of, to let you know that you have clients that might have some kind of underlying issue. Maybe they need, they have a tricky remote access setup, and all of a sudden COVID came around and now you're getting a lot of remote access tickets. And you can dig into, did they just do a project and a big migration, so there's a lot of like just residual stuff, or do they have some kind of issue that you need to have their account manager talk about getting a new solution for? So that was always big for us, just to see clients that were having issues that were a little out of whack based on their size, and figure out what's going on with them.
One interesting one that we keep track of, and I think it's worth bringing up, and it's not so much your service desk, because this isn't something your employee. I mean, it is your employees, but I guess more so on kind of the manager side of things. But we have so just like that, we have customer service expectations and things that we track for the customers. We also have employee experience internally, and as part of that is retention rate and turnover rate. And I think that's the sign of a kind of a healthy help desk, is if they have a low turnover rate. I think that kind of if you have a good core group of people together that work together well, I think that's going to be a sign of a healthy help desk that is able to meet your service desk requirements and KPIs, versus if you're constantly rotating and training new people in and out, and you don't have that core staff where the clients know who they're talking to every day, or someone's also new and then they have to get trained up on it and things like that. So that would be kind of probably a not as common one that can lead to pretty good results if it's something that's managed successfully. And obviously there's a whole that's like a whole nother podcast on itself, but it is something that's I think is worth bringing up and worth looking into. What about ticket stuff, like a crush rate? So you have like a rolling 7-day average of open versus closed tickets, or like the first resolution rates, making sure that the ticket's resolved right away and not 2-3 for the same thing. Is that something that you'd recommend keeping track of at all?
I mean, I would certainly recommend keeping track of it. It's hard to sometimes take action based on what those are, in that it's not always the case of someone's performing better or worse. It's very dependent on what's happening at the client. And the example I always use is if somebody is in the middle of a project, then right, the demarcation point of when the project ends in post migration support is a whole different discussion we can get into at some point. But there's so many variables. It just helps you to be able to keep track of like what's going on at your clients. But I found that the crush rate changing, or stuff like that, wasn't always indicative of something that we had to do on an individual tech level. It is good to know, though. I mean, I would track anything you can, right? You can't really have too much data. So whether it's usable day to day, different question.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, well, we got that one here. So let's get off of reports and numbers, and let's go into the human experience side of things. So we're leaving our MSP now, and we're venturing out into some other related communities. So this one comes from our sysadmin. How do you politely let people know that they're the problem? So this person has got a guy who always seems to have trouble in printing a PDF. The issue is he's trying to print a landscape document in portrait, and it cuts off some of the text. I tell him to change it to landscape, and voila, it fits. But the issue is that every time I have to do this, he claims he tried that a million times, but it always works the first time for me. Through the entire process, he always complains, this shouldn't be messed up. I tried to get this to work for an hour. It should just work how I want to. The guy doesn't thank me afterwards. No one else in the company struggles with like he does, and yet he blames the software for the problem. So although this isn't sysadmin, we experience these things in MSP world, day to day. So if you have a client with this issue, what are you telling them, or how are you dealing with it?
I'm not. I'm sending it to their manager or supervisor, or the point of contact at the client. You or me maybe have some of the people skills to deal with this kind of thing because we manage teams, but for the most part, that's not what we should be doing day to day. If you really are at that point with some user, just get their manager involved, or just get the primary contact at your client. You have better things to worry about than this kind of micromanagers, especially on that particular example. Um, don't waste your time on this. Like, just get your contact involved with the client.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this will show, going back to the reporting, this will show when you're doing the utilization, like, hey, this particular person has submitted, 10 tickets on the same thing and is utilizing all of this. So this is, at point, the client's issue. There's other things too, where the proximity, or hey, if you're on an all you can eat plan and then the clients start just calling about every little thing that can be solved by user training, not doing it for them, but showing them how to particular do this. One of the things we've gone as far as making work instructions for the client as well. So it's literally just the Word document, like screenshot, circle, click here, like the step-by-step that anybody can follow. And then if it becomes an issue with that, like, hey, please refer to the work instruction that you were given, because the user training does go quite a long way. But this is definitely more of a people problem than a technology problem for sure.
So your advice on making some kind of instructions or better documentation, or seeing if there's an easier process, I think we should highlight that. And the reason is, the discussion you and I just had made it sound like it was a very antagonistic relationship, us versus the user, wasting our time, sucking up our resources, all of that. What you talked about was saying, okay, let's actually be helpful to the client and help them get more out of their day, be more productive. Maybe they really can't remember. Maybe they think they're doing it right. They think they're following your instructions. They don't know what's going on and blame the software. Whereas we hear that and we think, oh, they're just blaming the software out of pure laziness, and helping them be more efficient and work better. That's the difference between, just going through and dealing with phone call after phone call and genuinely helping from an IT perspective. So really good point, Josh, to bring up. Like, don't just call up the contact and manager and say, hey, this person's being a huge pain. Here's how they can get better. And you might not even have to get to that point if you make a cheat sheet or make documentation or help their process. Fantastic example.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's just kind of what you try to have that partnership and working together. And I know we've talked about that before on the I think we covered the story on you're working with a vendor and how do you avoid the us versus them mentality and shifting the blame game. And it does take some experience and maturity, and even sometimes when you're making the document, be like, oh man, it feels like I'm making this for like a 3-year-old. Like, I get it. It's a human emotion. We've all been there. But at the end of the day, we're working together. I mean, our goal, we're trying to achieve the same goal, both you and that person. Our goal is to get the PDF printed right. So however we achieve that goal, there's different various ways to achieve it. And if it takes a little cheat sheet, then by all means, make the cheat sheet. And when you're increasing the operational maturity and the effectiveness of the client, I mean, you're boosting that client relationship, because then you're more than the IT provider, you're the partner. And I mean, that's what IT is supposed to do, and cybersecurity is supposed to do. Is it's not just a cost center, we're a force multiplier. So we're improving the effectiveness and we're allowing the business to operate more smoothly and make more money. So
yeah, cool. Fantastic point.
All right, well, let's get to the last one here. This one I'm excited for. So we're going to get on the technical side here. So this person has a really good idea, and I wanted to run this by you and see what you think. So this person's VPN is really slow, but he wants to work from home more often. So here's the plan. I like where he's going with this. He's going to port forward FTP, Telnet, and RDP to the domain controller. And, hey, we know why don't you just use SFTP or SSH? That's a good call out, but those numbers are hard to remember. FTP and Telnet, they're pretty easy. So if the user needs a local admin password change, you can just Telnet to the DC, PowerShell, and done. You don't need to get up or do anything. Like, super easy. So definitely no downsides to this at all. Like, this is a pretty cool workaround. What do you think, Matt?
Down with VPNs in one sense or another. Either move to modern workplace and have everything SaaS, or move to some type of zero trust architecture. Of course, zero trust means 75 things depending on what vendor you talk to. But some type of like SD-WAN style cloud access gateway thing that you don't have a VPN you're connecting to anymore, and this problem goes away.
That's true. So if you didn't see the community, this is from our shitty sysadmin, so please don't do this. This is a terrible idea when you're opening those things to the internet. One of my favorite comments on here is somebody said, "Why don't you just allow PowerShell over the internet? Then you don't have to worry about doing Telnet first." And the response was, "Well, that's because PowerShell's installed on the DC and not the internet. So Telnet is installed on the internet at port 23," which just killed me.
Oh man.
So yes, don't just expose those things to the internet. It's that security versus convenience. The CIA triad is the more accessible and convenient you make things, then inherently the less secure they are. So finding the right balance of it is. So yeah, if the VPN is really slow, then there's alternative solutions. Don't just open open the ports up, please don't. That was my. There was, I think. A particular vendor had a nice Halloween show that Dean helped up on, where it was going over what is your IT horror stories, or what is the IT boogeyman that keeps you up at night. And mine was, it was end of life or outdated equipment that is open to the internet, or just leave things open to the internet in general. That just scares me. Whenever I see that, it's like, this is a ticking time bomb. So please stop with it.
But seriously, if you have a VPN, look into ways to not have one.
Yep.
It's a lot easier than it was a few years ago.
Or if you do have one, just at least put MFA on it, please. Please put MFA on it if you need one. All right. Well, now that we've done the scare, we've scared you, we've educated you. You're up to date on sports. With the time left, what do you have coming up in your neck of the woods here?
Well, so the big thing for me is next week is IT Nation Connect down in Orlando. I will have sessions all over the place. I will be there. If anyone is watching and wants to hang out, please reach out LinkedIn, email, text, smoke signal, whatever. I will be hard to miss at that event. It's purely educational. There's lots of fun stuff going on, and I'm hoping to meet some of you and see people I haven't seen in a while. And that's kind of, and Ray and I are going to attempt to do MSP Community live. Usually doesn't work out because we get busy schedule-wise, but we said we'll try it. We'll see what happens.
I'm excited to see MSP Community live. That'd be exciting to see. So on my end here, no in-person events, just a lot of virtual stuff. So on November 22nd, we have our November version of our IR game, and we've released not only a new framework at this point, but a new scenario where we're doing a business email compromise scenario. And it is my opinion that a lot of companies and MSPs do not take business email compromises seriously enough. And this really puts you in the leads and shows you just how serious they can be and why you need to take a little more action than just, I'll just reset my password and call it good. That's not good enough. So please come check that out. And then our MMN peer group, the Diamond Dogs group, our next meeting is Monday the 25th. I did move the time on those because the middle of the day led to a lot of conflict. So now we're ending Monday with the peer group from 4 to 5 Central.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. And we will hopefully see you next week.
That's good.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.